Good day. Welcome to the Cory Morgan Show. Are you sick of the election yet? We're almost through a week of it. I usually look forward to these things, but so far it's just been, the usual, I guess, campaigning, a promise fest. We knew this election was coming for quite some time, though nobody knew exactly when, but now that it's happening, it still almost seems like it caught people by surprise. I guess maybe they'll find their stride later on in the week. Be sure to tune in on Friday. I'll have a live show starting at 11 a.m., and we really break down the election issues and get into that. Meanwhile, though, we're going to stick to provincial and, just issues in general on this show today. And I got a good one. I got Don Sharp. He's a paramedic. He's been on a number of times. He's from Where's My Ambulance. He's been active and lobbying and trying, because don't forget EMS. We can't forget our local issues during a provincial campaign. It gets kind of pushed aside or during a federal campaign. We still have to talk about it, so that'll be a good conversation with Don. And, of course, we'll be covering a lot of other things. Use that comment scroll. Even the mic there with Freedom Honey is allowed to. And Paradoxy, Sharp, good to see you guys checking in. This is an interactive show. That's why I like live. I really do. That's why I'm looking forward to the Friday show. It's live. Send me the questions. Send me the ideas. I see them all. I don't necessarily read them all out, but I do see them all, and it just reminds me that somebody's actually out there watching this. Okay, so let's get to the other important part. This show is sponsored by New World Precious Metals. Currencies, they're going crazy right now. They're based right here in Alberta, buy local. Years of inflationary money printing and rising debt. They've made a mess of the average Canadian savings. Gold and silver, they're the only currencies that have held their value for thousands of years. They saw 30% gains last year. What else can say they've made those kinds of gains? So New World Precious Metals, they're unique platforms that help you protect and grow your hard-earned wealth with gold and silver. Check them out, newworldpm.com, or just look up New World Precious Metals. It's how to save that hard-earned money, guys. It's important. All right. Well, let's talk about what I was talking about before. Sleight of hand. When you look at those things, I used to love watching those Penn and Teller shows, actually, where they would show how the magic trick was done. I know it ruins it for some people. I liked watching it. Well, a magician, they'll always bring the attention of the audience to the side of the stage while he prepares to deceive their eyes. If people remain focused on the performer, the trick's going to fail. That's part of what, magicians' assistants were about. Why they dressed them up and have them off to the side. It wasn't just to be cut in half. Now, the only hope the Liberals had of retaining power is to have a distraction so massive the public would forget about 10 years of terrible governance before heading into an election. In igniting an unprecedented and unfair trade war, Donald Trump gave the Liberals the gift that keeps on giving. He's become the magician's assistant. Whenever the Liberal record comes up, they point to Donald Trump. Whenever Poilievre makes a good political point, the Liberals compare him to Trump and then steal Poilievre's policy. Another violent offender released on bail? Have a rally, waving flags, and offer elbows up to Trump. News breaks with poor economic news. Dig up an interview from weeks ago with Premier Smith and an American outlet and claim it somehow brings Poilievre closer to Trump. It doesn't matter how unrelated to an issue Trump may be, the Liberals will find a way to tie it in there and tie it to the Conservatives. And Canada's legacy media outlets will happily indulge them. Canada's in for 5 solid weeks of political gotcha games tied to Donald Trump. And the worst part of it, it's working like a charm. The Liberals are making a speedy political recovery unlike any ever seen. Only a month ago, pollsters couldn't find 1 in 5 Canadians willing to vote for the Liberal Party. And today, they could be poised not only to win the election, but might pull a majority government out of this. And it's not just outlying pollsters reporting this anymore. Every pollster's seeing the same trend, and it's starting to sustain. Opportunistic Liberals are returning to the flock they so recently abandoned. Former Liberal cabinet ministers Anita Anand and Sean Fraser both recently said they were leaving public office to spend more time with their families. I guess after sitting with their families for a while, they discovered they were assholes, and they decided to spend more time in Parliament and to come back to jump into the political fray. Couldn't have anything to do with those new polling numbers, could it? The cynical, self-serving actions of Liberals, though, apparently don't bother Canadian voters. Edmonton Mayor Sohi, he's taken a 5-week leave of absence to run for the Liberals. He'd already stated he's not going to run again for the position of mayor, but he won't resign because he wants to keep collecting a paycheck for a few months in case he doesn't win the federal seat. Will this greedy man be rewarded by Edmonton voters with a federal seat? Perhaps. People instinctively rally around their current Liberal leadership when presented with an outside threat. It's a good survival instinct developed over thousands of years when there was things like tribal warfare. When your community is threatened, you cluster together and set aside your differences until the threat's resolved. So through fluke and years of opportunistic political machinations, the Liberals happened to be in power when Trump decided to challenge Canada's sovereignty as a nation with insulting jibes about turning the country into the 51st state And he did impose economically devastating tariffs. The Liberals were given an opportunity, and they have grabbed it. They're making the most of it. Are Canadians really that obtuse, though? Is Canada really that easily distracted and willing to overlook so many years of terrible governance? Canadians must look beyond the distraction and look at the record of the government before casting their ballots. Look at the doubling of the national debt, the explosion of overdoses after the decriminalization of hard drugs, the constant embarrassments overseas, the decline of the military and the rise of organized crime, the housing crisis, mass immigration challenges, foreign interference, the rising cost of living while the GDP per capita remains stagnant for a decade. The list of government failures is so extensive, well, successes are almost impossible to find. Donald Trump couldn't care less who the next Prime Minister of Canada is. He has his own agenda, whatever the hell it is, and it's not going to change no matter who Canadians choose in the election. Yes, the next Prime Minister is going to have to deal with the trade war, but let's not pretend Trump will respect one leader more or less than another. He can't even pronounce the name of one of them. With that in mind, Canadians must vote based on government performance and current issues. If Canadians can't see beyond today's distractions and reward yesterday's government with another term in office, maybe the country doesn't deserve sovereignty. Maybe Canada truly is too weak and too shallow to be sustained, and it's ironic that it's going to be a surge of domestic jingoism that's going to bring it to an end. The appetite for independence has been rising in Quebec, and the election of another Liberal government is going to cause an explosion of independent sentiment in Alberta. People will realize that the only way to fix Canada, and it is broken, will be to break it up and work to rebuild parts of it or all of it from there. This is the most important election in generations. So yeah, to take a term from Carney, look inside yourselves, Canadians. Look inside yourselves. All right. That's enough pissing and moaning. Let's see what else is going on out there. Check in with our news editor, Dave Naylor. How's it going, Dave?
It's going very well, Cory. Yourself?
Pretty good, actually. Yeah, as much as I get the blood pressure up when I rant. It's therapeutic.
Well. Have you had any visits this week from Indian Act investigators?
Not yet. The threats have been coming hard and heavy for my daring to show a video on my YouTube channel of the Siksika Reserve.
How many views now?
It's getting over 30,000, I believe, so far. Yes, not bad for a 20-minute video. And, all the threats and howling and indignance from some activists and people on there, no charges yet.
And YouTube hasn't taken it down?
They have not. So, hey, kudos to YouTube because they have been mass reporting it and complaining that apparently it's inappropriate, but YouTube disagrees. So
Good for you. Yeah. Good for you. Hey, are your bees coming out of hibernation?
They are. They've been out. I've been feeding them and getting them ready to get into spring. They're happy so far.
Oh, that's good. Did you see that story I sent you about a guy in North Carolina who is a bee vet?
I did.
A bee veterinarian.
Yes.
Where do they put the thermometer?
Well, yeah, or getting in there and neutering. I mean, that's got to be quite a task.
I just don't.
It was a cool article and a cool specialist. I mean, yeah, part of beekeeping. I see Mike, was on there from Freedom Honey watching as well and others. But yeah, part of beekeeping actually it's not that hard, but it's watching for there's a number of diseases and sicknesses that can hit your bees, and if you don't maintain them right, that's how you lose hives. And seeing somebody specializing finally, because there's nothing like that around here. It was kind of cool.
Interesting. I wonder if the university is going to offer it. Veterinary clinics.
Yeah, bee vets.
Bee vets.
Yeah, you don't have to get worried by bitten by the dog when you're bathing it. You just got to get the hell stung out of you.
There you go. Once, busy day in politics again, and obviously our site is dominated by that the last couple of days. We've got an actual full-grown communist in Edmonton now that's running for the Liberals. Rod Loyola, he stepped down from the NDP yesterday. He was an MLA, and now he's going to run federally for Mark Carney and the Liberals. But he's got a fairly checkered past as a true-blown communist, Cory. He was a former rapster, and we've got some of his lyrics there about how he's going to be firing off his AK-47s for the revolution and, candlelight vigils for when Hugo Chavez died and all sorts of weird stuff like that. So, good luck, Edmonton, with that one. The Telegraph, one of England's most respected newspapers, did a big feature on Mark Carney's volcanic temper. And one of the incidents that they cite was Western Standard, our two incidents, when we were thrown out of his rally in Edmonton, even though we had an invite, and when James Snell asked him a question and he got all haughty and what. So that's Mr. Carney's mood has gone all the way to the Telegraph. Speaking of Mr. Carney, he was musing yesterday about putting an export tax on things like maybe Alberta oil, and Danielle Smith gave us a statement this morning basically saying Mark Carney is clueless and she basically double dares him. You want to fight? Come on, we'll fight you. Carney had a problem today down east. I think it was in Windsor. Reporter asked him in French, and he didn't know he was talking about conspiracy theories, and he tried to answer the reporter in French, but he didn't know the French words for conspiracy theory. So he just said, "Oh, to heck with that! I'll finish answering it in English." So his weak French exposed again. Stories came out this morning that he and Brookfield was involved in moving all the company's assets to Bermuda, tax haven. And he was questioned about that, and he literally said, quote, "I own nothing," quote.
Oh, well.
Other than those $6 million minimum worth of Brookfield shares. Mm-hmm. And Polyev today has had a press conference down in Quebec. That's going to be a big sort of tax break for seniors. If they're still working, they can claim now up to $34,000 a year income tax free. So Nigel's quite happy about that.
Well, that's... Yeah, the gray hair amongst our group in
Yes.
here. Anyways, I don't know if he makes that much out of the standard, though.
No, that's true. That's true. Whatever he earns, it won't.
I mean, it's interesting with looking at the polls. Something that has been striking, though, those when the demographic breakdown comes along that are returning to the Liberal fold, or whatever way you want to put it, are actually older Canadians. It's the younger Canadians are still supporting Conservatives. I mean, everything's kind of gone flipped over. You used to go to a Conservative function and I'd feel young in it because the average age would be into the 60s, but a lot of Canada's seniors apparently are all turning towards the Liberals for some bloody reason.
That's what all the polls are showing.
Is there something wrong in the medication or something? I mean, these are people who are supposed to know better.
And also to let you know, 2 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, President Trump's supposed to be making an announcement on tariffs. We think in the auto sector. We'll see what comes out of that.
Well, I'm certain that'll cool down the political climate and bring some stability to everything.
I'm sure it will, but we'll be monitoring and writing it up.
Right on. Well, I'll read the report when it comes there, Dave. I'll let you back to your desk to start hammering away on those reporters.
Yeah, now, sadly, my desk is behind me now.
Yes.
So I'm going to have to make sure, or be very careful what I call up on the computer.
Oh, well, you never called anything inappropriate.
No, not at all.
Okay, folks, so be sure to zoom in that screen when it's not on my aged face and see what our newsroom is doing in the background. You can be the oversight and talk about transparency. We're as transparent as it gets.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
You bet, Cory.
I'll talk to you later. That is Dave Naylor, our news editor. Yes, lots of stories. I mean, again, it's hard to keep up with things as they go, as this election develops. So this is when I like to remind you guys, get on, subscribe. That's what pays the bills around here. We don't take tax dollars. We don't take subsidies. We are accountable to you, but we rely on it. So, $10 a month, just like an old newspaper subscription. You don't have to have it delivered to your doorstep. You've got it right on your screen, on your phone, whatever it may be. $100 for a year. Take advantage of that volume discount. I mean, everybody is looking to save a few more dollars these days, right? Times are tight. So check it out, westernstandard.news/subscription, and take one out, guys. If you have already, we really appreciate it. That's what's keeping us rolling. If you haven't, get on there, do it. The election's coming. Stuff's going to be behind a paywall. As you heard from Dave, those stories are coming out fast. I mean, we are an active newsroom. There aren't too many of them left. Look at that. You can see Dave getting back into his chair right over there, back to work. Just no privacy around here anymore. At least we don't have a bathroom cam yet. So, yes, lots to cover and lots going on. Darlene, I'm going to ruin your name, Darlene, and I appreciate your comment. Chernowichin? Either way, Darlene has commented and said the seniors that are voting Liberals need to turn off the TV news. That's an interesting part of the trend and something some people have been talking about. Why are seniors suddenly supporting Liberals again? Well, seniors are the ones more inclined to watch the old CBC, CTV Global, and guess what? Those guys are getting brutal. Oh, the slant on them. But you see, they rely on subsidies. They want those tax dollars. They desperately are invested in having the Liberals win. So, yeah, they're getting some pretty slanted news. If you want something for a name you might not be familiar with, I don't think I've ever mentioned her on my show, but I might as well for comic relief. Rachel Gilmore, interesting online personality. Nuttier and squirrel crap is what she is. Either way, if you want a Valley Girl interpretation of what the news is, apparently CTV has brought her on to fact check every Friday morning. Rachel Gilmore, this Fruit Loop, is going to actually be the person checking facts. And if you look into her history, she's had a long, troubled relationship with the truth. And this is what Legacy Media is hiring, a ditz in charge of fact checking every Friday morning. So Yeah, keep tuning into the Western Standard, guys. We might be grumpy around here, but at least we'll give you the truth. All right, let's turn to the guest I have today. Don Sharp is back and in studio. We're going to talk about EMS. How's it going, Don?
Very well. Pleased to be here again.
Good, good. Yeah, we're overdue.
Yeah.
Well, I used to get you a lot when I had that show every day, but now it's I've got to.
Oh no, it's been it's a great occasion for me to be here. It's our first anniversary.
Yes, of the Where's My Ambulance? That's what you've been.
Where'smyambulance.com. So for years we worked together trying to get citizen action groups together, and we did a lot of FOIPing and stuff, but we finally made it official last year and started pursuing the truth with a banner, where'smyambulance.com, and it's been very successful.
Yeah, and you had been traveling. You've been working on this for a while. I've got one of those signs at home, actually. Yeah. It's not on the lawn right now. Things are frozen up. But, our rural areas, where I live in Pritis is one of the areas where we've been losing ambulances pretty chronically to service city ones. And those are the kind of problems you've been bringing to people's attention.
Yeah.
We were looking at things optimistically, though. Premier Smith came in. She was talking about fixing some of the issues. She wanted to get in there and shake up AHS. But it's some things have changed, but progress has been limited, to say the least.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. We've asked for more information. I think three of the problems we have is poor leadership, not at the provincial government level. It's just an absence of transparency, really. I think we don't know what's really going on. We're not familiar with what her problems are, but certainly she's not. She made a lot of efforts to when she ran the radio show to have paramedics on. I think she understood the problem quite well. But and finally, a lack of accountability, and I think that's coming from AHS. I don't think I have a hard time separating the government and AHS, and I think a lot of people do. Like, who's really responsible for what's wrong?
Well, and that's a difficult part. It's confusing to people. AHS. It's funny. When Premier Smith was breaking that into four parts, people were in the news was reporting Danielle Smith is dismantling Alberta Health Services, and it's making it sound like she's taking down the whole. AHS is the bureaucracy. It's the administration. Yeah. The government is in charge of them, but they have to give them a degree of independence too. They can't micromanage.
No, and by legislation, AHS is protected. Remember, the Alberta Ombudsman, by law, can't even investigate AHS. They do their own investigations. So making a complaint to the Ombudsman about AHS, she'll just tell you, no, she can't get involved. The same with a complaint about, say, vehicle maintenance of ambulances. You make a complaint to Alberta Transportation, they say, AHS is an essential service. All we can really do is ask them to do better. If this had been a trucking company, all the vehicles would be pulled off the road immediately and certified. So, again, I have trouble drawing a line. I've got to work with the government that's in power. I don't want to be partisan. That's not the point, but my problem is consistently with AHS. I worked for them for a long time as a paramedic, and I think that their reluctance, the bottom line, is their reluctance to take risks, to do the things that need to be done to fix the problems that exist. They're a little over-focused on managing their own business at the bureaucratic level, rather than doing what's important, which is looking after the people who need care. So.
Yeah, and this is something everybody cares about. You might not realize how much you need it until something tragic happens, a health episode, an accident, and then that's when you suddenly discover, wow, we do not have a quickly responding.
No, and it's such a big issue. Even when you have a problem, people don't know where to turn. So, as experienced paramedics who've done some FOIP work before, we started digging in, and we FOIPed first around the Calgary area, and then we FOIPed some data in North Zone, and we exposed how poorly they are running the staffing up there. A lot of paramedics are dropping from full-time to casual so they can pick their shifts because they were just being overworked. It's fine in EMS. As a paramedic, we expect that there will be late trips at the end of your shift if you're the only truck available. But if it happens shift after shift and you become exhausted and your family suffers, paramedics start saying, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'll drop to casual and I'll work when I want.
Yeah, the burnout's been another big issue.
Oh, so frustrating. I get stories, we get letters and emails and phone calls all the time.
So there's a deadline for possible change approaching, right? One of the bigger issues labeled, of course, has been hallway care. Hospitals have been handing off care of new patients to paramedics who are stranded kind of in a hallway next to a gurney when they should be out, rounding up people or stabilizing
held hostage,
accidents.
really. held hostage by a hospital-centric system that believes patients in the hospital are more important than the patients I serve, which are the ones in the community. So we did a study back in 2017 about how many hours and days we spend in the hallway with patients. The hospital's got to pick up, and we hear, April 1st, we hear something from EHS that might actually be changing. So we're not going to hold our breath. We're convinced that, well, we've been lied to before. It's that simple. So we'll see what happens. But again, one of the things they could do to alleviate the problem is they hired a couple of private companies to do contracted non-emergent patient transfers, and that's absolutely necessary. The bottom line, AHS can't do it alone. And I watch what's been happening with this argument about private contractors, and I know that lots of people in the union world are just absolutely dead set against privates, but I think AHS has proven over and over again they can't do it by themselves. They need some help. There are private contractors out there who are qualified and capable of stepping up and moving non-urgent patients in a timely fashion using professional paramedics and well-maintained ambulances. So it's frustrating to see it not happen.
Yeah, and that's one of the, you would think, relatively easier common sense solutions. I mean, if you've got somebody who's got health challenges, they're being moved from one facility to another,
Yep.
You want somebody skilled with them in case something goes awry, but they're not urgent at the time. And
No.
we've been using fully equipped ambulances to do that task.
Correct. If you're the only paramedic crew in Nanton, responsible for 1,400 square kilometers, and they take you out of your service area to take somebody to the CAST clinic, that's a misuse of that vital resource. And I think people have to understand that, especially rural people get it. Their ambulance is gone for better parts of most days. Okotoks, Pritis, Black Diamond, those communities can all be empty, and nothing's ever done about it. Nobody seems to care as long as there's trucks in Calgary. So ending hallway waits would be a big part of that, returning those crews to their communities.
I mean, get them there, get them ready for those, again, that critical first
Yep.
hour or whatnot, instead of, again, transporting somebody. And I mean, there's the risk averse thing, right? People always say, well, what if that person is midway and transported and then
We can what if EMS to
yeah.
death. In fact, I used to answer questions that started with what if. I'd say, well, okay, you answer it. What if?
Yeah.
And in most cases, well, paramedics are, what we're really good at doing is solving problems. So if you have a problem in transit, you'll figure it out. You'll call for help. You'll pull over, or you'll go to the nearest, or, I mean, there's so many options. That's what paramedics are trained to do, is solve those problems.
Well, and we can't look for every contingency. I mean, if you had a whole cardiac crew in every ambulance, the chances of reducing a fatal cardiac episode in transport would be greatly reduced too. But we have to get realistic.
Yeah, it's like taking a limousine to the grocery store. Nobody does that. So there's lots of, and we exposed again the EMS 911 or EMS 811 referral system scandal, where Alberta Health said, yeah, we're going to refer a lot of non-urgent calls to 811 and they'll look after them and they'll get them alternate transport. But in large part, 65% of the calls that EMS sent to 811 were bounced back to EMS. In a lot of cases, because 811 didn't answer in the 3 minutes that they were required to answer, and it came back automatically, or the caller said, well, I don't have a car, or I'm not going to wait, or I want an ambulance right now. And it's just, again, this is the accountability factor. And the fact that we have to FOIP all of this information speaks to the lack of transparency. Very frustrating.
Yeah, and you've gotten some pushback. I mean, they've been pretty upset with you.
Yeah.
And
So last year they tried to take my license away as a paramedic. They made a complaint to the college. It went nowhere. And then they sent us a cease and desist because they said we were being defamatory. And I would say we were a little hyperbolic. But we were accused of making EMS managers feel unsafe. And we certainly don't want to do that. So we agreed to take some of the more inflammatory comments off of our and tone it down a little, which is fair, right? I mean, we're interested in the truth, we're interested in the facts, and we all together are trying to make EMS better. Being shut out, though, and speaking of being shut out, I mean, I was shut out from this EMS standing committee. I wasn't even qualified to sit on the committee. They made that quite clear. You had to be either a working paramedic or a leader in one of the related organizations. So now there's 22 people on the standing committee, some from the rural municipalities, some are fire chiefs, some are working paramedics in AHS. They've been meeting for about 18 months. They're called the Alberta EMS Standing Committee, and because they report directly to the minister, we don't have access to their agenda or their minutes. So I started phoning them. I phoned them up and I said, hey, I know you signed an NDA. I don't want to violate that. But tell me how you're feeling. Tell me what's happening with the committee. Well, they're all feeling just a little frustrated. AHS is doing some level setting, trying to educate everybody about how EMS works. And I think it sounds like they're trying to limit their actual ability to make change, which is, it's disappointing for them because we're depending on this committee to valiantly push forward for the changes that are really necessary. So I wish them luck, and if you're on the standing committee and you're struggling, I hope you realize this is not about careers or politics. It's about people's lives, and you need to stand up and tell them what you really think and make the changes that need to be made. So.
Yeah, and I mean, death by committee, it's something that
right?
Politicians and bureaucracies have always been skilled. If they want to rag the puck and just avoid changing something, just make a bloated, slow-moving committee and drag it out, and people lose interest and nothing gets accomplished. I mean, a committee can accomplish things with the right mandate and the will to do it, but you need oversight and transparency. That's why are they hiding? There's nothing in this that should be confidential, really. You're not talking about patient records or
not at all.
Things such
But
as that.
again, this is why we have these lawn signs. We like to go to the local town halls when the AHS managers come out and tell town councils what they're up to, and we can spot when they're bending the truth just a little bit. And I sympathize with town councils because every time you talk to AHS, you've always got one hand out, right? Whenever you're talking to as a town councilor, you've always got one hand out because you want something. So if you're slapping one of their representatives with the other hand, maybe that'll be counterproductive. But, again, town councils are responsible for advocating for the safety of their citizens. You need an ambulance in your town as often as possible. Stop letting them steal your resources.
Yeah, well, and it's something you've been doing more in the past, too, which I appreciate. You came out to Prentice in other areas, and I saw Mr. White talking, Cochrane. Some common sense things too, like maybe you don't necessarily need an ambulance. Things that let's get the public a little more trained to deal with, emergent issues. Sometimes we can resolve things without taking a truck out of the system. I mean, that's a broader, whole huge area as well. But there just doesn't seem to be motivation with a centralized bureaucracy. No, we want to pull everything in. You've got that bleeding hangnail and you're terrified about it. Well, just stick on the safe side and call an ambulance. Well,
right?
Wait a minute.
Yeah. And then, of course, when it comes time when you do call and you really need one and it's not coming, what do? So we've encouraged people to think about that. If an ambulance is not coming and you need one,
what's your contingency?
It's great to have a pre-plan. Have a plan B. How am I going to get Dad down the stairs and into the car?
Yeah.
So, and we don't like to say that, but you know what? Everything we see, the disasters in EMS are everywhere, whether it's staffing or dispatch or overtime. In 2019, they spent $6 million on overtime. This year, looks like they're spending $3 million a month on overtime for paramedics to come in on their days off and sit in empty seats and do calls. That's unsustainable financially, but it also burns our guys out. They're leaving the profession. They're failing.
Well, it's indicative of how exhausting it would be. I mean, it's a different profession than anything else. These are people that take it very seriously and understand that if somebody's not there for an emergency, a person may die.
Yeah.
And as burnt out as you are, it's hard to say no to that extra shift if you're going to be leaving an area uncovered.
You get that phone call, and you think they say, "Well, we really need you to come in." You say, "I'm tired, but yeah, okay, I'll come in. I'll do one more shift." I talked to a guy over Christmas. He worked 19 shifts in a row. How do you work 19 12-hour shifts in a row? How is that even allowed? But that's the way it is right now. I mean, it's so bad. Look at Red Deer Fire. Red Deer Fire also runs the ambulance service. That organization, the union, just had a non-confidence vote in their leadership because they're actually not staffing fire trucks in order to keep the ambulances staffed because the paramedics there are failing. It's a big controversy and it needs some attention. Strathcona Fire Department has well-staffed, well-trained firefighters on all of their ambulances in Strathcona County. But every night they get sucked into Edmonton. They spend the whole shift in Edmonton. Do you want to be a firefighter on an ambulance that spends all night in Edmonton and leaves your home community unguarded? AHS has this fallacy called the borderless system they keep hanging on to. It's a terrible idea. It's really a shared resources mass casualty contingency plan that they've adopted as gospel, and it's a bad idea. It takes resources from the smaller communities to the central urban areas and leaves those small communities defenseless. It's unconscionable in my.
Yeah, well, the government, Premier Smith's burning the candle from 12 ends, but she took on the big job. It's going to come with it. And this
you know
is
what? We're here to help her.
Yeah.
We're going to keep exposing what's wrong, making FOIP requests, even though AHS is now charging us $1,500.
Yeah, it's another way they like to. Yeah,
Just
City
trying to
Hall does the same garbage. to
Yeah,
us.
so I mean, we're here to help. We'll keep exposing it until somebody realizes that something has to change.
Yeah, and just in closing, for people unfamiliar with FOIP, it's Freedom of Information requests,
Yes.
and it is our information. It should be ours by default. They should be making the excuse as to why anything shouldn't be. I mean, there's some things that have to be kept confidential, but for the most part, it should be just there for us.
Yeah, and the FOIP team that we talk to, the guys who actually accept the FOIPs and share them with AHS, they're great people. Mm-hmm. They work really hard to explain the rules and get us what we're asked for, and help us with the nomenclature, with the verbiage. And but it's AHS seems to be just throwing a rock in the road and it's to their own detriment. I wish they could see that.
That's a shame. Well, I appreciate the work you're doing and hammering on it and keeping them exposed. And again, so you're at Where's My Ambulance?
Yep,
and,
where'smyambulance.com.
It's
And
easy one to remember and simple, straightforward.
yeah, we're on Instagram now. We have 3,000 followers. That was unexpected, but
Cool. So be sure, guys, get out there, follow them. Thank you again, Don. And reach out to Don. He's very responsive. He'll get back to you because this is something that eventually it's going to affect you, and it might be in the worst sort of way. So
know what to expect.
Let's get it fixed.
Thanks again, Cory, for having me on.
Thanks, Don. Good to see you.
You too.
We'll talk again soon. So yes, again, one more time, where's myambulance.com. And it makes sense. Going a little farther back historically, and it gets into the blasphemy among some people and so on, but municipalities used to run their own ambulance service. It was local, and you know what? We centralize things too much. We stick it into a location that can't apply itself, I guess, to the wider needs of a broader area. So needs in a rural area are going to be different than those in an urban area. Calgary needs are going to be different from Prentice needs where I am, but you're sharing all those resources and stuffing it in under a centralized governance. I believe it was under the Stelmach government when that first came about, and it's not working. But what do you do? And AHS, they have been dragging their heels. Premier Smith has been in a pitched battle, basically, with AHS, Alberta Health Services. That's the stuff that's going on now where the government's being sued for wrongful dismissal of the former head of the AHS. And there's accusations of inappropriate tendering for private services that are going on. I don't know. It's being investigated. I don't put it beyond any government, unfortunately, to screw things up and make mistakes when it comes to that and procurement. But at the same time, you've got a bureaucracy that clearly does not want to change anything, and they're going to do everything they can to maintain the status quo. So, reach out to those things. That's part of what I like what Don does. It's a citizens thing. He's come out to small towns. He's talked to people. As I said, in Cochrane, they came out and talked to people about just how to take care of yourself. It's saying if you phone and you've had, somebody's having a cardiac episode in your house, a stroke, something like that. This area is where liability, everybody worries too much, but you need to get that person to medical professionals as fast as possible. You phone 911, of course, that's what you're supposed to do, but they say, yeah, it'll be there in about 40 minutes. Or often they won't tell you the time, but you've got to know, you got to push. Because if it's going to be that long, they'll say, get the person in your car and start driving. Get moving, because sitting still isn't going to help. You can stay in communication with EMS if you've got the ability anyways, And they will offer that information to people, because all Don wants to do, and the other paramedics he works with, is just make sure people get help as fast as possible, because it's so important to be speedy. All right, but the stuff that's getting overshadowed with all of that is the federal election. We should talk a little more about it, some of the stuff that's been in the news. So the NDP, the polls, as I said, they're in collapse. I put out on X the other day, I'm wondering with Jagmeet Singh, this is the worst NDP leader in history. He really is. And that support, you look at the polls, the Liberals have been growing and surging some of it's been a little bit of slowdown in support for the Conservative Party, but for the most part, it's the NDP. They're down to like 9%. And that's all going to the Liberals and opportunists and extremists. So look at what Dave mentioned with Loyola joining the Liberal Party federally. You know, he's an Alberta member of the legislature. He's a hard left Liberal or NDP member of the legislature. Yet, apparently, he's not too far left for the Liberals. He literally marched in communist parades. Look it up. There's pictures of him proudly marching with a communist banner behind him. We're not even talking about socialists anymore, run-of-the-mill leftists. A literal communist. Not literal in the way that hammerheads like good old Rachel Gilmore uses. No, I mean it. He's a literal communist. And as Dave said, you know, he's known for pumping up people like Che Guevara and Castro. And this guy's going to run for the Liberal Party. If the Liberals win, he might actually be a member of Parliament in the governing party. And he's a communist. And people think that Carney has actually brought the Liberals into common sense. People think that Carney is made the Liberals a little more conservative. No, not if you're bringing in nutcases like Loyola. And will Edmonton elect him? I don't know. Those Edmonton ridings, you know, they're full of union civil servant hacks. They will vote for whoever paints himself as the farthest left. So what a nice embarrassment for Alberta. We've already got one kook up there, Heather McPherson. She's a crazed NDP member of Parliament from Alberta, one of our embarrassments, and we might have more. What's nutty times? In the meantime, again, everything's been turned over on its head. Carol Scobie saying, don't believe in the polls. A commenter, and that's fair enough to say because the polls in the last few years have been less than reliable sometimes. Sometimes they hit it well, but there's been sometimes they've been awful. We saw that south of the border. We've seen that in past elections. But usually it's a matter of a few outliers. The polls have limits. An election campaign can change things, but no, there's been way too many of them now. Even the internal polls. One of the most indicative things, because parties run polls all the time, ones that they don't release. And those are ones where the parties really want to learn what it's looking like out there. They want to see the landscape. They're constantly spending money getting polls, those internals. And when you see Liberal MPs, opportunists like Fraser and Anand, who said, oh, we're going to leave and spend more time with our families, and then suddenly turn around and say, nah, you know what, we changed my mind, I'm going to go run for office again. The internals are telling them that they're going to win. So, I know there's only one poll that counts and all the terms we can use for it, but the polls at least show some general trends, and they can change. They can change a lot between now and Election Day. Carney's not a well-prepared, polished politician, whatever he might be, and he might stumble. Canadians might see through things. This might turn around. But there's a real risk of these guys getting in, and guys like Loyola getting in with them. If Carney really wanted to build a party that's going to be somewhat common sense and somewhat rational, he wouldn't allow a nut like Loyola to join. Why isn't Loyola running for the NDP, for his own party? Well, because he wants a seat. And not just a seat, he wants a seat in the party in power. A communist in the party in power. Plus, when it comes to that, if there's only 2 Liberal MPs, typically the Liberals will put those MPs in cabinet. And look what happened with that. Well, we had Randy. He was the scandalous Liberal MP from up in Edmonton who has finally stepped aside, and he's not running because he's nuts. And he was constantly caught lying. He was lying about his Indigenous heritage. He was getting government contracts. It sounds like that would be based on that alleged Indigenous background. And plus, of course, he made up multiple names for himself to claim, communications weren't his. It's just nuts. So he was out of cabinet. And then we have the porch pirate, George Chahal. He's known as the porch pirate down here. He's from Calgary, a Northeast riding, literally stole mail from a person's mailbox in the lab. The doorbell camera showed it. He walked up in the campaign. He even had Chahal on his shirt, and there he is right in the camera. Smart guy, that Chahal. Saw a conservative piece of literature in the mailbox. He pulled it out and then put the Liberal brochure in. And even after being caught doing that, he stayed in the Liberal Party, but it was embarrassing enough that he didn't get into cabinet. But if Loyola gets in, and the Liberals win, Loyola will probably be a cabinet minister. We'll have a communist cabinet minister, at least. And as some others are saying, we've had enough communists around already. Sure, but those are closet ones. Loyola's right out there in the open. That's how nuts it is. This country, where we're going, this is something that Daniel Smith, Premier Smith, did email to the Western Standard because Carney mused about export taxes on Alberta oil or potash from Saskatchewan, provincial resources, putting a tax on those in the tariff battle with President Trump. And she said she's been very clear, Alberta will never agree to an absurd and self-destructive export tax on our oil and gas headed to the United States. She said it pretty clearly. Well, this has been done before. Pierre Trudeau did it in the past, and it was a disaster. It castrated Alberta's economy. It just devastated us here. The rigs shut down, the work shut down. I mean, I don't know how to deal with Trump. Counter tariffs aren't the way to do it. As we've had multiple guests talk about that before, it's just shooting yourself as well and just this race to the bottom. If we can afford to wait it out long enough American consumers are going to look at the orange man and say, cut it out. Cut it out. The price of everything's going up, you madman. Stop it. It's not helping. We're not suddenly developing an oil industry in Utah because it's not there. We had to buy Canadian products for that. There's the potash. That's the 80% of the American fertilizer comes from Saskatchewan. They don't have a source there. So yeah, you can hurt them by putting a tariff on that, outgoing. But if you start tariffing incoming stuff, you're just raising the cost of Canadian goods. Tariffs are stupid. And if we waited out long enough, Trump's economics so far, and I know the Trump supporters get upset with me too damn bad, his economic policies are stupid, and they have been. And it will catch up with them. We have to wait it out. And we do have to broaden our export marketability. We should be looking at increasing port ability so more Alberta and Saskatchewan and British Columbia natural resources get out to other customers. It's a smart way to do things no matter who the president is. Likewise with potash and other things like that. But if Carney steps over and into provincial jurisdiction and starts putting export taxes on our products, that crosses some very heavy lines. I mean, if there's going to be such a move, it should be done by the province because those are provincial resources, not federal. But you want to see the Western independence movement really spring up. Yeah, get in there and start meddling with our exports and our products and see how quickly things become problematic. The promises this week, giving a quick rundown. I mean, it's week one. It's interesting from both Carney and Poilievre. I mean, we're basically at a two-party system at this point. It's going to be Liberals and Conservatives. The NDP have self-destructed under Singh. The People's Party, really, they just have their fringe where they will, but there's nowhere where they have concentrated support enough to win a seat. But they'll be there. They'll speak to what they will. Fair enough. It's a democracy. That's the way it goes. And, of course, crazy Liz May and her weird... Check that out. They got a weird co-leadership of Elizabeth May and the other fellow where they speak together at conferences. Again, shows some of the weirdness of voters, Salt Spring Island and the others, where they will reelect people that nutty. But they will. So it can happen. It's a two-person race. And they're both promising the same things all over the place. So both are promising tax cuts this week. Some for seniors, some for people just in general with lower income, people buying houses. Both parties have said that they're going to offer, tax cuts on the GST. So reality, you get the same thing promised from both. Which one do you believe, though? Which one might be true? Look, the Liberals are accomplished liars. They're very good at it. Oh, to be fair, there's been no shortage of conservative lying politicians historically either. Unfortunately, lying and politics just come together all too often. So you have to look at the broader issue because they're promising the same thing. Which one's actually going to follow through? The other thing, I'm glad they're all promising tax cuts. I don't care which party promises it. It's a good promise to make. But you're going to have to eventually make spending cuts then because we're not bringing in more revenue, are we? And you don't hear them talking about that. That's blasphemy. That shows, unfortunately, the cowardice on the part of politicians and the weakness on the part of voters, where they won't vote for somebody who gives them a hard truth. Or at least some people think they won't. In Alberta, we will. I mean, Ralph Klein ran on tax spending cuts, and guess what? He got reelected and reelected with larger majorities every time he did that. Spending cuts can be well received if they're done carefully and smartly. But yes, okay, paradoxically pointing out something, saying one will increase debt to pay for the promises while the other will cut frivolous spending to do so. I like to think so. I like to think so. But specify where the cuts are. Just saying you're going to cut isn't enough. You got to have the courage to say, we're going to cut this. We're going to cut that. I want to see where these cuts are going to be. I want to see commitment to make these cuts. And the courage to follow through with them when the time comes. Yes, I have my leaning. I mean, I'm an opinion person. It's an opinion show. I think the Conservatives are far, far more likely to make those cuts. Much more likely to be economically responsible. Look, we have to turn over governments every now and then. We have to, for the sake of just flushing out the rot, the inside dealing, the corruption, and it comes with all of them. It happened when the Mulroney government was in for too long. It happened when Klein's Progressive Conservatives were in for way, way, way too long. And the Liberals have been in for way too long as well. They need to be flushed out. So if you're going to look at that, and that's what's so maddening then, people, if you want to look at it and both these parties appear to be the same, they aren't. We need to get one out. And if all things are equal, vote for the bloody Conservatives. Don't be a peckerhead putting those Liberals back in for another term. They're not going to do us any favors. We know their history. Carney is not going to help anything. Wildrose, I'll leave it off, gave a final comment for the show today saying we need term limits. That's a separate discussion altogether. There's good and bad things about term limits, but it's an interesting one to bring up, so I appreciate that comment. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Watch for other special episodes of things coming up. Derek recently interviewed Christine Anderson. That'll be going up soon. Nigel Hannaford has his show up. I'll be back on Friday with another live show starting at 11 a.m. to talk all federal good stuff. And the pipeline will be on tonight. So thank you for tuning in today, guys, and we will see you all on Friday.
What does success mean to you? Peace of mind? Financial freedom? Generational wealth? What do you see in your future? Investing in gold and silver can help you get there. Through our trading partners, New World Precious Metals offers safe, affordable, secure international accounts to help you meet your unique financial goals. Connect with one of our experienced team members. Invest in gold and silver today.